So if you ever wonder what I use for my podcast or even my YouTube channel, I'll give you the secret. You ready? Ecamm Live. If you actually need a platform that allows you to add overlays, sounds, fonts, and so much more to your video stream while seamlessly letting you go live on all your favorite social media apps like YouTube and Facebook, look no further. Ecamm Live is the only software that you'll need to upgrade your podcast, music sessions, video tutorials, or even your webcam meetings. It's an all-in-one platform that's consistently adding great features for their members to offer the absolute best production capabilities. You can actually try out Ecamm Live completely risk-free for 14 days by checking out the episode notes below and click that little link to download it right to your Mac. Have fun, creators.
You're just funny. It's the way you tell the story and everything.
Funny how?
Come here though. Yeah, he's crazy, see? Who are you? We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Are you ready?
Ladies and gents, what's going on? Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Burrito Podcast. I'm your host here, Tony Burrito, and today is a lot of fun. I say that with most of my episodes, but it's because most of them are a lot of fun. And I have on Chris Wood, who is a Taekwondo instructor out of the UK. He runs a cool little studio that he's created a bunch of content for. And during the pandemic, he had the challenge of teaching people virtually. So he used a program that we both use called Ecamm Live. And we talk a little bit about that as well. I'll leave the description, or I'll leave the link rather, for his page and for the program that we use, Ecamm. But Chris and I talk a lot about not just Taekwondo and his teaching abilities and his experience, but also health as a whole. Health with our youth and the children coming up and their lack thereof. So we talk a lot about that. We talk about the current state of social media and just overall a lot of good stuff. Mental health, physical health. We talk about a lot. It's a good conversation. I think you'll get a kick out of it. And without further ado, please help me welcome Chris Wood.
Not really. So I work full time. So I've got a full time job, and then I teach kind of 12 hours a week as well. So that's kind of a pretty heavy part time job. Plus like all the admin of the club and running the club and
Sure.
Yeah, the entrepreneurial flows of that as well. Because obviously I have ideas and thoughts and want to introduce things, and those things always seem to take time and if I have an idea, I'm like, yep, let's do it and just get it done, rather than sit there and kind of hypothesize the idea and think about it. I'd rather just do it and test it, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, do something else. So I find that's kind of the best way to find out if something works, you know. The problem is, like, when you have an idea like that, you can ask 10 people and you might get 8 people say, nah, that's a terrible idea. And then you get 2 really kind of, I don't know, different thought processes in their heads, you know, and they're like, oh yeah, that could really work. And you end up, 8 people said no. You think, oh, I'm not going to try it, but actually it's probably the best thing you've ever done. So
that's right.
It's
those little trial and errors. That's the best way to do things. To try
100%.
And you're over in the UK, yeah?
Correct. Yeah.
How is it over there? Weather and everything good?
Yeah. We just literally had the best summer we've ever had. I think it's probably the best way of putting it. Yeah. Like,
is that right?
Temperatures insane, like 40 degrees, 37. It's been crazy for us. Like that's Celsius, right? So you
Celsius,
guys all Fahrenheit. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's a
it's
chilly
cold,
summer, but
yeah. So it's hot for us. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but yeah, it's
I think it's like 30.
Hot.
Yeah, you add 36, I think, or 33 and some change. I don't know. So
yeah,
and I was talking to my buddy who's out in California, and I don't know how we started having the conversation about metrics and Fahrenheit and Celsius and all that. And he's like, yeah, I don't know why everyone else. Oh, it's because I do a lot of ice plunging. That's what it was. And, for some reason I was listening to this podcast and automatically I said Celsius. And I said it was interesting because, like if you go ice plunging overseas in Europe, Iceland, where it originated from, and you go with those guys, they go, let's go in freezing water, which is 0.
Yeah.
But with us, freezing is negative 32.
Oh, okay.
Which doesn't make any sense. Like,
no.
It's just so interesting because we always look at people and say they're weird for talking about meters and, and all that, but it's well known around the world. Like if you go to the Olympics, it's not a foot, a 3 foot in the pool or 6 foot in the pool or dive. It's a 9-meter dive or a 12-meter dive. It's all meters.
Yeah.
There is no feet
Yeah.
or inches or anything. So
True.
we're the weird ones in America.
Yeah, I don't know, because we're kind of weird as well, because the rest of Europe, everything's kilometers.
Oh, is that
Whereas
right? I didn't know that. Okay.
Whereas England's miles. So we're miles per hour. Like every road sign's miles.
Interesting.
And all the distances are yards. Whereas even stranger, really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I don't know,
we have a real mix.
It is strange. Like there's a few things that I don't even think there's one thing that every country agrees on.
No, you're probably right.
Yeah, except for maybe like the Antarctica Treaty. Aside from that, we don't.
Yeah.
We don't do anything together, which is very like religion, politics. Like we do everything different, and it's so weird because it's been going on for so long. We look at like the U.S. I mean, we're 1776 or so 300 years old, right? We're 3 people old here, but China's 4,000 years old.
Yeah.
So it's like we knew that China existed, but we're like, we're not going to do it that way. That's stupid. Let's just make up our own thing. It's very strange.
Yeah. I think the only thing you could say across the board is everyone's adopted currency. Might not be the same currency, but it's currency.
That's true. That is true. We all agreed on that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we all take each other's currency, which I guess is good.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
It would suck that I take my US dollars and I go over to UK and you're like, yeah, your money's no good here. I'm like, what? What do I do?
Yeah.
You just throw that away and you got to buy new stuff here. All right, good. So summer's good. Coaching's good. So if people don't know, I'll do a pre-intro before this, but what do you teach and how long you been doing it for? What's your background and all that jazz?
Sure. So yeah, in terms of what I teach is Taekwondo. So it's World Taekwondo style. It used to be called WTF until the terminology of WTF became what the you know what. So they rebranded to WT. So it was the World Taekwondo Federation. So that's what it was, and they've rebranded just to World Taekwondo. So there's really across the globe essentially. There's World Taekwondo, and then there's ITF, which is International Taekwondo. And the international one is realistically kind of more a US thing, to be honest. Kind of adopted. It's 2 kind of tribes, I believe, and one went one way and the other went the other. And yeah, that's kind of how it went really. So that style, which is the Olympic style of Taekwondo. So kind of what you see in the Olympics is what we're teaching. Very, very bespoke part of the Olympics essentially is just the sparring part, which is the kind of competition, the fighting aspect of it. Whereas kind of the actual martial arts side of it, there's probably breaks down into about 6 different aspects. So we kind of, I make sure that my club teaches all the aspects rather than just, you get some clubs that will just do the Olympic sparring type of it. Because basically it's quite easy to fill a club up with people if you say you do Olympic style Taekwondo. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to come to that. That sounds amazing. And all you do is fight. But I quite like the old traditional part of it as well. I suppose it's kind of what I did to learn what I've done. So I kind of want to pass that on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been doing it for a while then?
Yeah, so I've been practicing since I was 13. So coming up, will be 26 years in a few months that I've been training myself, and then I've been teaching for coming up 12 years. Club's 12 years old next March. So yeah, 11 and a bit years, 11 and a half years.
Very cool. Yeah, and obviously you do that full time, so it takes up 7 days a week of your life, right?
Well, I run the club full time, but I only actually teach 12 hours a week, and then I've got a full time job that's completely separate from Taekwondo. Yeah.
Oh man.
So yeah. Proper busy. Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, and it's it's not an easy thing, being not just being a coach, but just in general that Taekwondo in particular and jiu-jitsu and MMA as a whole, very similar to like I used to wrestle, but it was interesting when I was in that culture. There was wrestling, like high school wrestling that you see, and then there's Greco-Roman, and then there's freestyle. So not as broad as Taekwondo, but There's numerous different styles and tactics, and
Yeah.
depending on who your coach is and where you go, we trained in Appalachian State University, which is in North Carolina, really great wrestling school. And we were there. We did a lot of Greco-Roman and freestyle. But that was the first time I ever did like freestyle wrestling. It's such a complex sport, very similar to, MMA and anything that's that physical, that one-on-one. Because a lot of people I always get made fun of sometimes when I tell people, oh, I used to wrestle. Oh, you didn't play football or you didn't do basketball? Like the team sports, there's no team camaraderie. People don't understand when you're in MMA or wrestling or taekwondo, that is more of a team sport than you think. And it requires a lot of not just, personal discipline and self-control, but depending on when you're practicing, of course, not when you're actually competing. But when you're practicing, there's an environment that I would relate a lot to, like the military, or it's
kind of almost like almost like a camaraderie, right? That everyone around is sharing that knowledge and trying to kind of get. Well, certainly that's a kind of the feeling that I get within the club is almost everyone's trying to kind of pass that knowledge on. If they've grasped it, if you get a higher grade that's kind of grasped certain aspects, and within a class they're paired up with someone who's not quite getting a certain thing, that's the kind of. I see what you mean in terms of the teamwork side of it. So I could be, with another two students the other end of the hall, but I know that the people around the one that are struggling are all kind of trying to explain and trying to give examples, or trying to give kind of, as much help as they can to the ones that are struggling with it, if that makes sense. So yeah, from that perspective, even though it's an individual sport, like you say, when you're in a ring and it's just you and the other person, 50% of that's mental anyway.
That's right.
But when you're in the club learning, 100% agree.
Yeah. And the clubs I always loved because, you would, obviously with weight classes, you'd go against a guy that you've been training with all week. And, we'd have like these tryouts to see who's the best, just kind of, mucking around. And then literally we'd kick each other's ass was the goal, like Friday, right? You're the lion. I'm trying to kill you. I'm in the Coliseum, like just fighting to the death. And then afterwards, we'd bust each other's balls and critique each other and make each other better. Yeah. And there's something kind of special and unique in that, because there's a switch, I feel like, in that sport, unlike any other sport. Maybe like our football, right? Like, and maybe a little bit of soccer, but there's a weird competitive nature in those team sports to where, especially if you're a fan or if you're a player, like for us, there's the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets. Mm-hmm. Well, if I have friends that are Jets fans, during football season, I don't talk to them.
Right.
It's that serious, right? But when it came to like wrestling and that one-on-one sport, it was very, during the match, we hated each other, but then afterwards we're like, if we make each other better, the team is better, and then overall we can grow. And that's what's unique about, I think those club levels.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
When it comes to coaching, I mean, are you finding it more difficult? Obviously because of the pandemic, I mean, a lot has happened around the world. Are you finding it more of a challenge to get people into the club, to coach people, to get people motivated? Of course, the last 2 years in particular, I mean, it's been kind of, let's be honest, I mean, it's been a good time to sit back and Netflix and chill. A lot of people aren't as active as they used to be, maybe. So are you dealing with that at all?
Yeah. So to be honest, I've kind of not, it's not been a challenge. It's been the opposite, really, which is quite surprising. But kind of I can't remember when we opened up. I think it was around, must have been April last year that we kind of come out of the final lockdown we were in. And kind of ever since then, we had, I think going into the pandemic, we had 92 students, right? And then the pandemic hit, and that was obviously horrendous. And within, I think 6 weeks, I'd got ECAM and sorted my garage out, or garage, whatever you guys call it. I get berated for calling it a garage, and they're like, garage? What's a garage? You mean the garage? Anyway, so I was doing that. I was doing the Zoom sessions, and probably, to be completely honest, probably only about 50% of take up, right? Because people were either didn't have the space at home, they didn't have the inclination to do it at home, or they didn't want to kind of put themselves in a kind of vulnerable position where they were on camera and felt uncomfortable. It's probably the best way of putting it. So there's a lot of challenges from that perspective. And to be fair, looking back now, I wish I kind of pushed it a bit more. And I don't mean pushed it in a pressure way, but I probably could have done some one-to-one calls with the ones that were kind of feeling more nervous about it, if you like, and explained it in a better way and kind of made them feel a bit more comfortable. Because to do it on Zoom, obviously they had to have their camera on, because otherwise there wasn't really a lot of point. They might as well have just have watched a couple of YouTube videos and followed along, because they're not going to get any coaching. But put your camera on and suddenly a coach is going to start then giving you feedback. So from that perspective, hindsight and all, it would have been, I definitely should have done that and didn't. Coming out of the pandemic, we had, I think, go back to the hall straight away, I think we had 60. So we'd lost 30 students, which is a fair amount of people, really, when you think about it. If you had a class of 30, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Some of them over time filtered back, maybe 5 or 10, something like that. But then this complete new wave of just people were just like, oh, taekwondo, let's give that a go. It was almost like where people have been locked up and stuffed away for so long. It was like, I'm free. What can we do? And it was just, people just seemed to, and I didn't advertise anything. So that was strange as well. Just the amount of kind of inquiries and stuff like that we were getting straight away. And within 2 months of going back to the halls, we were back up to more than 90. So from that perspective, that was okay. In terms of challenging in coaching since coming back, I don't think there's not been any challenges really. I mean, there were some challenges with what you could do initially in the halls. Kind of, there were a lot of restrictions, a lot of rules with COVID. So we had like a fogging machine, and we're cleaning between sessions and things like that. And there was no physical contact, so it was just kind of, you could just do the techniques on the pad or things like that, but you couldn't do sparring, couldn't do proper self-defense, things like that. So there were those kind of challenges, but they, compared to Zoom, it was like, don't really matter. Do you know what I mean? We're back in a room and still kind of that community feel, if that makes sense. So everyone was happy, even though there was some restrictions. So it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah. And, I noticed that too, because my background, I think we might have talked about this before when we did an eCam chat, but my background is health and wellness, and I've been in the marketing industry for a long time. But one of my first gigs was a personal trainer at a health club, and ever since then, 18, 19 years old, I'm late 30s now, so I've been passionate about it ever since then. And of course, wrestling kind of, I think, jump started a little bit, gave me defibrillator. But I was just a kid when I wrestled. Once I got done with camp, I was like, I hit weight during the time, and then when it wasn't on season, I was gorging like a pig. You know what I mean? So But now I'm starting to understand that, and I think as we get older, to kind of talk about what maybe happened over there, because we're seeing a lot over here as well, is for the past 2 years, people have just been on the couch, watching TV, barely hanging out with friends, barely hanging out with family, and either consciously or non-consciously, we're starting to understand that it affects us. Like, it definitely affects us mentally, physically, and how you get up in the morning. Maybe you're a little less lethargic when you're active. And people, I think, started realizing that when they were doing nothing for 2 years and they woke up miserable every day and they can't see friends and they can't see family. They're like, well, something's going on here. Like, what's happening? And then maybe people are starting to do research on what they're eating and their activity. And if you can't physically go to the gym or can't go to camp or something like that, hopefully people are getting out and walking around. And I think now more than ever, fitness as a whole is starting to kind of get this like big wave, which is exciting. And social media has a lot to do with, of course, but I think people are getting more and more intelligent when it comes to longevity versus like when I was a kid. Again, going back to wrestling and weightlifting, I did it just to compete. I did it for fun. I did it for the camaraderie. But now I'm realizing, like, if I don't do it, I feel like shit. Yeah. And like if I'm not active, I don't sleep good. And, I ache all over, and I have like headaches and flu symptoms and, skin rashes, and like my body reacts a very interesting way because I've been doing it for so long. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize that after the pandemic. So hopefully people are getting more active and they're doing research on their phones with what they're doing to their body by not doing anything, because it could be detrimental to your longevity.
Yeah, a lot of thing we have is kind of, I think it's a bit of a weird one, and probably this goes towards your kind of background maybe in marketing, but a lot of the time, obviously every parent that comes and brings their child, I'd say probably 10% is just a punt, i.e. they're just bringing the kid along, see what they're like, it's just another exercise or whatever they can try, another kind of, it's not dancing, it's not gymnastics, it's something a bit different. It's not swimming, it's not football, soccer we call it.
Sure.
So maybe this is a sport for their kid, right? And they might try their couple of sessions out and they either love it or they're like, yeah, let's move on and try something else. And I'm more than happy when people do that. But it's the ones that kind of have got a pain that are the ones for me that I kind of try and work on the most, if that makes sense. So normally it's the parents that have got the pain and the parents have got the guilt. So it'll be that the parents of, I don't know, you might have a little lad, 8-year-old Tommy or something, who's literally, they've not done anything with him. He's put on way too much weight for his age. He's left to just do what he wants. Has like, I don't know, pudding after dinner every day, plays video games, lives on an iPad, watches YouTube, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly they're looking and going, "Ooh, we need to do something about this." And all of a sudden, it's like it's the parents pushing the kids, right?
That's right.
And it's a bit dangerous because, like, if it goes well, that's great, and the kids kind of are all happy. But if it doesn't, and the kids hate it, they really start looking and resenting the parents for sending them, and you end up with just a kind of vicious cycle and kind of a group of kids in the class that you're like, they don't want to be here. It's really difficult, but
yeah,
they're the ones that, it's quite, and at the moment, that's the kind of thing that's happening is where lockdown was there wasn't anything for them to do.
Sure.
And yeah, that's the one thing I'm noticing massive.
Yeah, no, I could definitely relate with that because, again, just being in the industry, very similar to, because working out is, and just overall like going to the gym and doing cardio, like whatever your shtick is, it's hard to get in that routine. I think once you get in the routine, it's better. Something extracurricular like you do, which to me is a great benefit mentally and physically, but it's hard for people to understand because I did karate as a kid. And that to me was just huge for my mental health and overall like my ability to kind of grasp coordination. And I think it really helped me with my wrestling career as well. And the discipline, I think, when people go into that classroom now versus like when we were kids, maybe it's their attention span. Maybe it's, they don't have that interaction like we used to. Because, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking, what's the difference between you and me as kids versus like the generation now? And you kind of touch base on it with the iPads and watching YouTube all the time. But I think a lot of it, I would probably say 80% if I had to throw something on there, 80% of it is just kids not going outside and playing.
100%.
We don't, I was talking with my buddy that has a kid now that's, I think she's like gonna turn 4 or turn 5. And, I'm like, hey man, what do you do on the weekend? Cause I'm curious cause we're looking to start our own family as well. I'm like, does it get boring? It's like, nah, we don't, daughter really doesn't like to go out and do anything. I'm like, oh, so she just like goes outside and plays with friends? No. Friends come over and we just hang out in the house and we do this. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, wait a minute. So she hasn't gone out at that young age. So now she's starting to already adapt like this technology. So when she turns 8 or 9 or 10 and you try to get her involved in Taekwondo or ballet or whatever, she's like already turned off because for the past 4 or 5 years, she's been looking at a device. Why would she go and put on a gi and do this shit? Like what? And that's scary because, I'm worried about being a future father myself one day that my kid's going to be the weirdo that's going to go outside playing with sticks.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to raise him. And, all of his friends are going to be 8 years old having phones and saying, hey, Tony Jr., what are you doing playing with sticks and hanging out in your treehouse? Why don't you come inside and, play video games with us? It's like, you're going to be a weirdo if you're outside playing. And I think we're kind of past the point of no return, unfortunately. Don't you think on that?
It is scary. I don't think it's past the point of no return, though. But I do think definitely missing out on stuff because, those times you were out with your friends playing on your bike and stuff like that.
Oh, man.
You were pushing the boundaries every time as well. So you were out, you were, I don't know, playing football in places you weren't, kicking balls over fences you shouldn't have been, climbing over to get the ball back. And, the owner comes out shouting and going mad. And, you literally, those experiences, you can't get them watching YouTube.
That's right. That's right. Getting dirty, man, like mud.
Falling off your bike,
Yeah.
running and, annoying your friends in a social situation and getting into a fight.
Yeah.
It's just, and those silly things, right? Well, not even a fight, but just even a shouting match, whatever it might be. But those experiences, those social experiences, if you're not having them when you go to, it's the workplace thing that worries me, because all of those kind of experiences that people have had at that young age are, adaptable for later on in life. So I'm noticing that at work personally, when you get youngsters coming in and they just don't know how to speak to people properly, or they get into an awkward conversation and they just sort of shut down. It's like, oh, I don't know what to do. So I'm going to break down and cry now, because they literally don't know how to, they can't control that emotion because they've never been put in that situation before. And it kind of goes back to that, I don't know what it's like in the USA, but, here you can't lose at school, right? Everyone gets a medal, everyone gets a trophy, everyone gets a clap.
Same thing
There's
here.
no first places. Like how? So if there's no losers, how do you lose? Because in life you're gonna lose.
Yeah,
you need to learn how to deal with that. And some people, when they win at the moment, they're over the top, and it's kind of from the social aspect of it, it's just wrong, right?
For sure. Yeah, no, we unfortunately the same thing here, and I would say whatever you have going on over there, it's probably worse over here if I had to guess. Only because, like, we're at this point now where we're rewarding not just losers, and lack of a better term, I say losers, I don't mean that individual is a loser, but they're not the winner, right? There's a first place and a second place. Second place, you lost, you're a loser, right? It's just a word. But I don't mean physically loser. I mean, we not only reward that you lost, but we also reward being out of shape. And for people that start getting into shape, there's a lot of shame that goes on with that as well. There's I don't know if you're familiar with Adele over here.
Yeah.
So obviously she's not from here, right? She's
British. Yeah.
She's British. Yeah. But there was this massive, and I say from here because the only backlash I feel like is from us stupid Americans, where she started losing weight. Yeah. And she got shamed like crazy. And her voice, her voice is the same. She's just as beautiful as she was when she was, a little heavier. Not that she was overweight. Same thing with Rebel Wilson as well.
Yeah, I think to be fair, I mean, this gonna sound really bad, but I think Adele definitely was overweight, right? She's lost a lot of weight.
She has, yeah.
In all honesty, she looks fantastic.
She looks great. She looks great. And a lot of people in the overweight community said, Adele, what are you doing? Like you were a hero. Like you were the overweight girl that we looked up to. You can still look up to her, but now she's healthy. She's not at risk of type 2 diabetes. Like it's a good thing.
But is that the same people that almost like, I know this sounds really bad for me as well, I guess, but you almost get the kind of community of people that are overweight that are like, oh yeah, I'm overweight and I'm proud. It's like, well, you might be proud, but you're also, like you said, at risk of heart disease, heart attack, and getting diabetes. So you can be proud all you like, but it's not natural, realistically. That's right. Either you've got a medical condition of your resting metabolism's really low, or you eat a lot. There's no two ways about it. There's only one way it happens. So
and I look at people that are overweight, they lack discipline, because there's a lot of discipline that is involved, again, especially here in America, to where every food is processed. Unless you're on a whole food plant-based diet, I mean 99.9% of our food is processed and full of chemicals. So you really have to be diligent with what you're eating. And if you go over a little bit of your diet and you're not eating the right foods, you're eating fast food all the time, not only is it very easy to gain weight, but it's very hard to get rid of it. And then as you get older, it becomes more and more difficult. So this weird gap that we're in, to where we're putting overweight models on magazines, and we're, Victoria's Secret comes out with the, XXX line, like it's, and I don't mean the good XXX like porn, like XXX large.
Yeah, extra, yeah.
Right, like that to me is like, listen, I mean, they're beautiful in their own right. Someone's gonna love you for sure. you're not my type. Doesn't mean you're bad. Doesn't mean I'm bad. It's just, I'm not into that, right? Now, is everyone like that? Of course not. But at the same time, it has nothing to do with looks or who you are as a person. It has to do when I look at someone that's overweight, I worry for that person, for their health. It has nothing to do with sexuality or if you're attractive or not, because I'm married. I could care less. But as a society, I think we're stuck in this bubble of like, be who you are and embrace who you are. That's true to an extent. But what if who you are is an overweight slob that's at risk of type 2 diabetes? And
Yeah,
you're going to
100%.
lose both your legs and you're going to make your family depressed because you're that much closer to death. So is who you are the greatest when you're overweight and have diabetes? I mean, this is the thing we have to, these are real conversations, I think, that, we have to start thinking about, because the only way this is going to get better, I think, Chris, is if we go all the way to the end of the spectrum and we realize that we went too far and we preached everyone's great for who they are and XXX magazines and, you're overweight, but that's okay. And, we do all these weird things and then we're like, uh-oh, this is bad. And then we'll start tearing it back a little bit. It's like, I always kind of think of it like the Me Too movement. There was so much outrage and, there was so many victims in that. And eventually there was just so much bullshit as well, right? There's a lot of liars out there and they got proved wrong.
Yeah.
So then they're like, oh, let's bring it back a little bit, and I think that's going to happen with this fat shaming and stuff because, you kind of have to. Like me, I was overweight before I did wrestling, and wrestling got me into shape. And a lot of it was because my friends made fun of me. All right. And I thank them for it. Because if they didn't get me involved into wrestling and losing weight and being active, then I wouldn't be the person I am today. I wouldn't be, in shape. And because it's that much harder. Like as you get older, it's more and more difficult.
Oh yeah, I'm working that one out.
Yeah, it's so weird because now I'm training more than I normally do. I'm up to like 4 days a week now. I'm training. I remember I used to train twice a week for an hour and a half, and I was like jacked, shredded. I barely watched what I ate, but now I have to like be super diligent. It's a nightmare now, and I'm not even 40 yet. Like I'm about to turn 40. It's
wow. I've noticed in it massively. I think for me like from a personal perspective, over the past 2 years or 2.5 years, I would say now. So I'd say the first, I don't know, from April 2020 till maybe September, October that year. So that 6-month period, I think I was probably the fittest I've been in a long time. So I was like teaching in my garage 4 nights a week,
nice.
like 2.5, 3 hours a night. And it was very different because when you're coaching, you're not physically actively taking part normally, right? So if I'm in a session, I might do, out of the 10 demonstrations that are needed, I might do 2 of them. But then I'll pick students to do some of the other ones because it gives them confidence. It puts them into an uncomfortable position when their name gets shouted out. They're like, I'm in front of the class. I've got to do it right. I've got to do it right. But also, again, that's a transferable skill to life because later on, when they're in a meeting and they need to speak up, that same feeling that they get when I shouted their name is already coming up. Bang. Okay. But when they've had 4 years of that, it's a controllable feeling. They know how to they learn how to control that. Okay. It's almost like public speaking, I suppose, which I've never done personally, but I think I could probably relate a lot of the type of coaching that I've done. I can, for some reason I can stand in front of 50 students and talk and, there's no problem. My heart doesn't skip a beat. Whereas if I was invited at work to go and do a conference speech in front of 200 people, I'd be bricking it. But really, why? It's one of them things. But those kind of skills are, I think, are transferable for that kind of thing. But yeah, I think since we've definitely been back to the halls, my personal training's gone like low compared to what it was. And obviously, I'm now 2.5 years older. And like you're saying about that kind of, I'm massively noticing the difference. So I need to lose around 7 or 8 kilos, which in pounds is what, 2.2 pounds a kilo. So maybe 22 pounds, something like that. I need to shed realistically. I can see in my camera, my face is massive compared to what it should be. It's like just small things like that, right? And
Well,
it's
the
just,
camera
it's
adds
crazy.
10 pounds, Chris. So
Okay, fair enough. Cool.
you're fine.
So
Yeah. So you actually
right
hit
now
your
I'm
goal
like
already.
95 kilos.
And
So yeah.
are you doing any resistance training? Are you doing cardio as well? Like what's your routine
So
when you do have the time?
when I do have the time, I like to run. So I normally do, if I go out for a run, I normally do a run on like a lunch hour. I normally try and do, I try and do 2 or 3 runs a week, but probably getting down to like 1 or 2 a week at the minute, which is no good. And it doesn't help with the heat, because in the summer it's like, I love running in the heat, but where it's been so for us, it's so hot.
Yeah.
It's been really difficult. So yeah, from that, but I normally do like 10K runs. So
Oh, nice. Okay. So, yeah,
but even that, it's not, you know, doing a couple of 10K runs a week. And even I've got some weights in the garage that I do, but I'm just not consistent with it. So for me, I need to get that consistency back. And that's just a me and a time thing. But
yeah. And what about your eating habits? Are you watching what you're eating to maybe lose some weight that way? Or is that?
Yeah, yes and no.
You could be honest here, Chris. Well,
I'm going to be honest.
If you want, don't you lie to me.
More
on this
no than yes. I'm going to be honest. Yeah, because I've been really lucky in my life, right? That I've always just eaten whatever I want, and it's never ever been an issue ever. Like it's never been an issue. But this past 2 and a bit years, I'm like, there's.
Until you hit above 35, man. Once you hit above 35, I always goof around with my buddies that are younger than me. I'm like, bro, be careful, because once you hit 35, your body literally says, okay, that's it. We're on our way to dying now. And it just starts like
high gear's
down.
Gone to middle gear, right? So yeah, that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
I've got like it's a bit of a running joke, right? So I've got a whole wardrobe that I'd love to get back into, is probably the best way of putting it. So trousers wise, right? I've got trousers that I used to wear 3 years ago that I can't even do a button up on, like not even a button. That is that crazy. And I'm just like, I refuse to go out and buy the next size up, because that's like giving in. So
I love that.
I'm like, no, I'm keeping those, and I will get into those again.
You'll fit into them. I like that.
100%.
That's a good practice out there for folks. Stop buying new clothes.
Fit into the old ones, 100%.
Right.
Yeah, because otherwise if I go out and buy new clothes, that's it. I've given in, and I'm going to accept it, and I'm not going to work on getting back down to what I want to be. So yeah.
Let me ask you, have you ever practiced intermittent fasting?
No, I've seen a lot of this. Obviously, it's like I suppose it's a big thing at the minute, right? Because I see it on Facebook ads all the time. I see it on Instagram ads constantly now. So it's obviously kind of it's not a trend, because I know it's been a thing for a long time, but it's obviously a current thing that's being pushed a lot.
That's right.
I don't know a lot about it, if I'm honest. I don't want to kind of just download a load of apps and sign up to things and all sorts. But I'm guessing the idea is that you don't eat for a couple of days and then you eat.
So there's fasting, which is horrible if you don't know what you're doing, and that is where you don't eat for a couple days, and you just maybe drink water or tea or infused water, like cucumber water, lemon water, things like that, and you could fast for a couple days. They say it's best. A lot of studies come out. They say it's best to do that at least once a year to cleanse your body full of toxins, but there's just not enough studies out there to really show that. I mean, even intermittent fasting is it's widely known to have a lot of benefits, but also too, there's a lot of contradicting things, because every person is different naturally, just like anything else. It's, it's like keto diet is good for one person, that might not be good for another, right? But I would say intermittent fasting as a whole, the idea in a nutshell is to give your body a break from eating. So, for example, like if you eat dinner at 7 p.m., don't eat anything after 7 p.m., and then have breakfast at 1 p.m. the next day. So you can have, black coffee, you can have water, liquids are fine, teas, but don't have any food for 16 hours, essentially. So that's a decent size intermittent. fasting. There's also just 8 to 10 hours, which you probably do on a daily basis because if you sleep 8 hours, you're right. But the problem is when we typically eat, or excuse me, when we wake up, we want to like have breakfast and have coffee right away. The idea behind intermittent fasting is your body kind of goes into this mode of not really fight or flight type of thing, but it really goes into this a matter of fact, okay, he's not going to eat for a few more hours. So I need to take nutrients from that stored fat that I have and the water that's getting replenished. And, I need to get it through there first. And that'll last me for a couple hours. Our culture has been doing intermittent fasting for thousands of years. We just didn't call it that. We just called it starving for a while. But then, studies are starting to come out saying it's good to give our intestines a break. And I always tell people, it's like I have my neighbor I wrote him up a plan just for shits and gigs where I'm like, try some intermittent fasting. You'll plateau eventually. And now he's at like 6 months and he plateaued. But he lost like 25, 30 pounds of fat. Wow. But the reason that is because now his portion sizes are a lot less. He's only eating twice a day. Okay. So his caloric intake, though, is the same. So let's say if you're eating, 3,000 calories a day and you're working out a lot and you're doing cardio and you're doing your 10Ks, you would just now eat 1,500 during that breakfast, lunch, and then 1,500 calories for dinner. And then you would stop eating after 7 or 8 p.m. So you're not starving your body because you're still doing the same calories, just the timing. And it takes your body a while to get used to it. But I've found great benefits in it personally because I was diagnosed with Crohn's a while ago, and I realized that my intestines they don't operate normally, right? So giving my intestines kind of a break because if you think about it, ever since we could eat solid food, let's say you're 30 years old, you've been eating solid food for 27 years, right? So nonstop, 3 meals a day, 27 years, every 6 hours, nonstop. So your body just doesn't have time to break. And the studies that are come out, which again, aren't really conclusive fully because it's hard because every person is different. But the studies that do come out say that when your body isn't eating, the only thing it does now is it's able to repair everything.
Yeah. So like preserve.
That's correct. Because it's like, this is our time. So it's like they huddle around and like, all right, guys. So we only have, I don't know why I did a Donald Trump thing there. That was weird. So we only have, listen, it's going to be a huge day. But they huddle around and they go, all right, guys, listen, we only have 6 hours. We got to get to work. So you need to fix this flat tire over here. You need to change this transmission over here. You need to do this, you need to do that. And your body's just going around fixing everything until we eat again. And then right when we start eating, then the body's breaking down all the foods. It's putting the nutrition, where it needs to go. The amino acids are going to help build the muscle and, all these different things. So it's really important the longer you break. That's why they say fasting's so great for you for those 3-4 days of no food, is because you literally clean your bowels and your intestines. And that is just, to me, very terrifying. Yeah. But I've heard some great results from it, but I don't know if I could ever do it. That's just...
Yeah. I mean, I could easily go a day, right? 1 day, that's fine. But
that's easy.
Easily. But it sounds like that intermittent thing you're talking about there, realistically, skipping a meal. So
that's it. Yeah, you're skipping a meal.
Late dinner.
That's right.
No lunch.
That's right. And the key to that meal, that first meal, is packed full of fruits, veggies, nothing good shit. No breads, no sugars, no, because again, your body is going to take that and it's going to store it.
Yeah.
So if it's, full of fat and sugar, it's going to store that versus having protein and, vitamins and minerals. It's going to distribute the right way. I will tell you though, if you tried intermittent fasting tomorrow, you'll notice an immediate difference in your clarity. Day one, you'll be more focused. A lot of people think like around 9 a.m., that day you're like, oh, I'm hungry. I need food. I'm going to be tired. You're like this. You're hyped up because your body is going in overdrive. It's never done that before. It's pretty interesting. So yeah, I wouldn't Google too much about it. I would just try it, skip a meal and just make sure you're ready to rock and roll. Cause there is a lot of like bullshit apps and all that stuff that tries to take advantage, just like anything else. Like I'm vegan and there's so much bullshit out there. It's hard to be vegan.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because there's so much crap out there. But that's with anything, right? Like imagine in your industry, it's probably the same way. Like, just coaching as a whole. They're probably like, well, on TikTok, I saw this guy and I could learn from him. Do you
Oh
ever get
yeah,
that?
yeah. Oh, no, I normally get parents that have, on Instagram or on TikTok. I saw these taekwondo instructors teaching these steps and this kick in and these combinations. You should get the kids doing that. I'm like, yeah, it'd be great. But they've only started 6 weeks ago, so they haven't got the foundational skills to be able to even remotely do one of those things. But that's brilliant. Yeah, let's try and sprint before we can even stand up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically. I get that a lot, but
yeah,
it's just education, right? You just got to educate the parents, and realistically, and you're talking about parents that are, in the nicest possible way, should be joining in and eating less themselves.
That's right.
So
and then of course they always want that, that what do they say, the short term results for
they want the long-term results in the short term.
There it is. Yeah. Yeah. Where they want that quick satisfaction without putting in the work. It's like, those parents that go in and say, oh, why don't you do this? He'll get better that way. It's like, what? Why don't you teach the class? What do you mean? They're like, we got to take our time here. We got to do the right steps. But we have such short attention spans that we always want something right away.
It's one of the things actually that stuck during lockdown really is that the short memories, I think, that a lot of the parents have. During the pandemic, everyone was like, what you're doing is amazing on Zoom and all this sort of stuff, and it's so good that you've kept the club going and that you've put on the sessions and the kids are loving it and stuff like that. Within 6 weeks of being back in the hall, it's like, when are you doing more lessons? Like in a week? Like, what, are you going to start carry on doing like 6 days again? Are you going to? And I'm like, no, I'm not doing 6 days. I'm 100% not a chance. That's one thing I have changed actually, and I've said, look, Friday, Saturday, Sunday now, that's my days. So I'll teach Monday to Thursday, and I'll fit in as many lessons those days as I can. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday is family time now, because it's been amazing really this past year to have every Friday, Saturday, Sunday where we can plan to do stuff as a family has been epic, because prior to that it was, I used to do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then we used to have competitions on a Sunday. So from a family perspective, as a coach, it was tough really, and not really fair on the family, to be honest. So it's been a massive change, but it seems to work. You get the odd person that's like, oh, do you not do weekends? I'm like, no. Why do you want to do an hour on a Saturday, which then restricts you the rest of your weekend or your Saturday? You can't plan to go and do stuff. Oh, let's go to the beach, or I'll leave at 6 a.m, or I've got a lesson at 10. So I'm not going to be done till 11. So I'm not going to be home till 11:30. So we can go at 12. Won't get to the beach till 3.
Right.
So,
and it's all like, with everything like that, whether it comes to working out or going to a club or when, it's all about stickativity and scheduling. Stickativity is a word that I used to use back in the day, but that pretty much means it's sustainability essentially, but something you're going to stick to, and to your point, if you have classes on Saturdays, you're not going to go every single Saturday because all the cool things happen on Saturday, That's the beach days. That's the park days. That's the birthday parties. That's the,
exactly.
You want to hold your weekends. And I tell my wife this all the time, to where you don't have to work out on the weekends, because sometimes she gets caught up in, she wakes up early Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's kind of her day to work out. We have different workout schedules. We have a mirror at home, which it's, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's literally a big mirror, but it's an at-home gym on the mirror. It links up to your phone.
I've seen it on Instagram. Yeah.
It's radical, man. It's really cool, especially being a trainer. I resonate a lot with it because the guys are very interactive, and you could FaceTime with them, or you can, watch pre-recorded ones and do it. But there's kettlebells, there's kickboxing, there's Tai Chi, there's all types of cool stuff.
That's cool.
So she'll do it 3 times a week, and she struggles, right? Because Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you wake up, and before work, you try to get motivated. You get out there with your coffee, and you try to get in the motions, and you don't want to do that. So then you're like, oh, let me do the weekends. Well, but the weekends, you're not going to do that every weekend. So, she's in this weird struggle. And I told her, listen, if you go hard during the weekdays, 5 days a week, really 4 days a week, right? You got to take out Friday, 4 days a week. If you go hard 4 days a week, now you have 3 days to not just, you don't want to ruin everything you did and have pizza every night, right? But at the same time, there's a reward aspect to it. And when you go 4 days a week or 3 days a week, whatever your routine is, and you go hard and you look at yourself 5 weeks later, 6 weeks later, and you start seeing results, there's certain satisfaction that's involved in that versus trying to figure out, every other Saturday or every other Thursday. And, you're not in that routine. You're not having that stick-activity. And then eventually 6 months down the road, a year down the road, you're not seeing results. And you're like, oh, well, Chris's gym doesn't work. Tony's advice doesn't work. No, man, it's just you haven't stuck it out. You got to get on that routine. And once you do it and you go hard with it and you stick to it, it's going to be good. You just got to get in that routine first.
Yeah. It's just like, it's basically like just consistency, right? Realistically. And compound consistency. And I think that's I read a really interesting article actually about working out. There was it was quite recent. I don't know where I read it. It was on somewhere online. But it looked really, really interesting. It was basically saying that they'd done a study over 30 days of people that trained the same amount of basically reps or not even reps or time actually. So people that, let's say there was like a group of 30 people, 10 trained one way, 10 trained another way, and 10 trained another way. So one were like really hardcore. They did like an hour a day in the gym, right? Every single day or 2 hours a day in the gym. It was quite a lot. The other group of 10 did 3 days one week and 4 days another week for a 30-day period. And then the other group did around 15 minutes per day, maximum of 6 reps
every day,
and did everything every day. And the ones that did that every day saw like nearly 1.5 times the results of the ones that did 2 hours a day in the gym.
I think I remember reading that.
Oh,
very
amazing.
Interesting.
So I'm just like, why am I not going to my garage and just lifting a dumbbell 6 times? Because that's enough every day. Yeah. And it's just like, and it's that compound thing as well. I remember listening to, I think there's an audiobook called The Compound Effect.
Sure. Yeah.
Really, really interesting. But I remember thinking, like, if I just did 10 press ups a day, right? And this sounds really, really simple and really basic, but that's 3,650 press ups a year that over there, blah, blah, didn't do. And that's just 10 a day. Who can't do 10 press ups a day?
That's right.
It's just, I've just got to stop complaining and going, I haven't got time. Yeah, I have. I've got time to do 10 press. I could do 10 press ups now and then carry on. It's just
right.
like,
and there's been tons of other studies out there and articles that I've read, and even with my certification, they tell you at first practice to do only body movements. Those are squats, jump squats, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups. If you could just do those every single day, whether that's 3 sets or 2 sets, whatever you could do, and you do that every single day, you'll get massive results. And parallel to that, even if you just bear crawl, there's a few fitness trainers that I follow that just did the study of bear crawling for 30 days. Every day they wake up before their coffee, they bear crawl for like 5 minutes. So everywhere. So they'll play with their dog, they're bear crawl in the morning. They'll go up to the couch, it's all bear crawl. And their forearms in 30 days get massive. And they have just all around just great obliques. And they start in 30 days seeing really impressive results. And, I think that goes back to just evolutionarily, like our bodies are meant to be that active. So all you got to do is give it a defibrillator. You just have to reactivate the millions of years of whatever's inside of us that will come out once you start being active. And that's very true. And you probably know, like when you're at camp, you feel that the second you get on the mat. Like once you start getting the heart rate going, there's something in you that's like it wasn't in there an hour ago. Like right, something comes out where it's like, ooh, this is new. Like I feel it. Once you get in that rhythm, ooh, it feels good. You just got to get in.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. I see that there's a guy on YouTube from the UK.
That's right.
He literally, I can't remember his name, but he's quite big on YouTube. But he's the stuff he's like doing is crazy, absolutely crazy.
It's insane.
But
And he does a lot of what are those circles with the rope, the tightrope?
oh,
Not tightrope, but the gymnastics thing.
yeah, the rings,
The rings.
ring
Yeah, I guess
work.
there are rings.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he does a lot of rings too with that, and I'm just like, what he does is amazing, and all that is based off of plyometrics,
Yep.
no weight training, just a lot of body movements, and that's possible. So there really is no excuse for someone to be active,
No,
because you could just do that stuff at home.
But if he lived local to you, you would think he was insane. Like, when he was first starting his YouTube channel and he's kind of just out for a walk in a pair of jogging bottoms and literally looks like a gorilla. And you're
That's
like, what are you
What is
doing?
this guy doing?
You
Yeah, I wonder how many times he got the cops called on him. I'm curious.
Yeah, and it probably, but yeah, I'd imagine he's doing very well now because he's definitely got a lot of subs.
Yeah.
and I see he's got like his own courses and everything now. He is a YouTube phenomenon. Fair
Yeah,
play to
man,
him.
all from crawling.
Yeah. Who'd have thought it?
Who would have thought? That's a lesson out there for everybody. Get outside and crawl.
Yeah.
But I just realized, man, so I want to be cognizant of your time. So we're at an hour already. So that flew by. But Chris Wood, this was good, man. It was good to finally catch up with you. We've been trying to do this for months now. But I'd love to have you back on again so we could talk shop some more.
Yeah, cool.
But I know you're a busy guy, so we appreciate you coming on the show and talking about what you know and sharing some health and wellness tips. And for anybody out there that maybe is interested, because I do have worldwide audiences, not so much in UK that I'd like. So maybe you can help me out with that, Chris. I'd love some UK subs. But where can people find you? What are your social handles? All that jazz.
Good question. So on YouTube, I've got a channel, but to be honest, it's lacking. It needs a lot of work. But just literally search Creative Ways Taekwondo. That's the name of the channel. So it's also the name of the club. That's pretty much it, to be honest. I don't really have, from a Facebook perspective, there's Creative Ways Taekwondo on as a Facebook page. You could jump on there and just hit like or follow on there, just to see updates of how the club's doing and things like that.
Nice.
But yeah, realistically, that's pretty much it. I'm quite a hermit, to be honest, for someone who's jumped on a podcast. So kind of, yeah, I don't know. The more I've kind of, it's a bit of a strange one. I thought, right, during the pandemic, I had this kind of, I don't know, epiphany thinking, do you know what? Now I've got Ecamm and I'm using all these camera gear and, I've worked it all out. I could start an amazing YouTube channel and all this kind of stuff. But actually, the amount of like, I don't know, time and effort that goes into actually having a good channel and things like that, I genuinely have not got the time to do that and run a club, I don't think, personally.
It's a lot of work.
And also, it is a lot of work, but I'm also I worry too much about what people think, right? People that are completely irrelevant to me that will just comment on a video or whatever. And
you can't think.
I'm going to be honest. I just can't, I just don't need it. So I just figure, let's not worry. So,
well, if I may make a suggestion, and if I was a coach now in 2022, I would do my job like you normally do, but I would either set up a tripod and wear a mic, or have someone do it for me, obviously, but that, is an extra cost. But that's all I would do. And then you can either edit it or just post it right up. But I think there's a lot of value in that. And a lot of people say, well, that no one's going to watch that. Dude, millions and millions of people watch the Kardashians. Trust me. There's smarter things out there. And I think the little speeches that you might do, which I'm imagining just from my experience in industries, is those little speeches, not just for the kids, but I think for potential customers and parents that are watching you teach, and they look at that and they say, Billy needs that. Susan could use that motivation. And I just think even if you could do little clips here and there, it wouldn't take any extra effort from me because you're just doing your job. So something to think about, man, because you do have a dope setup there. So you got the nice camera and the mic. You might as well use it. Get one of those little Rode I've
already got one. Yeah, Rode Wireless Go. So I could literally just.
Dude, come on now. Yeah, no excuse, Chris. Next time I talk to you, you better at least put up one episode. And dare I say, if I was you, once you get really good at it, which I think you could be really good at it, is once you do those little 10, 20-minute clips and you find something really good and really inspirational, you throw in some inspirational music, and you take that little clip and you make that a podcast. That's what I would do. Because I would love to sit in the sauna or be on a treadmill and either watch it on YouTube or just hear it about you coaching kids. And I'm a father and I got a kid. That shit would pump me up. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah, fair play. Cool. Thank you very much.
No, dude, Chris. Well, it's again, good seeing you. Let's do this again. And yeah, thanks for all you do, man. And stay safe out in the UK.
Thank you very much. Thanks for bringing me on.
Absolutely.
Take care, Tony.
Oh, hey there. I'm glad you made it to the end. Thanks for checking out this video. I'm sure you're going to like all the other podcasts that I've done. You can check out some more videos right here, whether you're watching me on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. I would love you forever, even more than I already do. And tell a friend who needs to hear it. Until next time, we'll see you later. Peace.